start with the stuff from a wild perspective that I actually care about. Secret Passage was in basically every rogue deck that could run it, did run it. And it was one of the better cards. I think the only deck that really doesn't get hit as badly by the Secret Passage nerf is probably Alex Rogue, but it still probably hurts there. I mean, 1 extra mana when you're looking for something to survive or a draw tool still influences how you play the card. The number of times I prep Secret Passage, though, normally, wouldn't shock me if it's like, this is a little bit overstated. The card isn't killed. It's just worse. That seems probably where it's most accurate to me. I think it's a good nerf. I think it's a good change. I think it's good for the format, for Secret Passage not to be just propping up Rogue and making Rogue the best class in Wild. It's been really good for a long time. People got to play it for a long time. I think that's fine. Null to 6. Good change. Not having free Wild Paw Nulls off of Passage, off of Finley on turn 1, on turn 2. This seems like a good change. I think it's an appropriate change. If people still want to play a goofy thief deck with nulls and they run additional ways to produce thief cards and your Wild Paw Null gets discounted by those, cool. That works for me. The one that's a little strange is this one. Now, is Sorek at the scene of a lot of crimes? Has been traditionally over the years. That's why she got nerfed 4. Was she at the scene of a lot of crimes this expansion? Cups Mage was probably a tier 4, tier 3 deck. It wasn't a very good win rate. It was very fragile to disruption. You could out armor it as Odin Warrior. Like I gained like 60 armor and ended up, beating a Cups Mage simply off the back of they didn't have enough damage to get through. This feels like a nerf that's going one of either two ways. Way number 1, it's a response to, and this is the one that makes the most sense for me, if you're going to make this nerf, is APM cheating. This card does, in fact, allow for some APM cheating, animation cheating, and so maybe it was taken out for those reasons. A more disturbing option, though, is when we were put forth the option in, to give our input as far as like what nerfs or what balance changes we might like to see for Wild. Most everybody said Ice Block, but Ice Block is a weird change. How do you change Ice Block's flavor without changing the card itself? I think it's time for the card to be once per game, personally. Or to make it legendary, or to make it undiscoverable, or something. But that's not a change that they could do easily. This apparently is a change that they could do easily, and there's some thought that they made this change that they didn't have to change Ice Block, and now magically Mage is fixed. Well, you've seen my content enough to know that I've played Hostage Mage, I've played Light Show Mage, I've played Ping Mage, and all these archetypes lean on the repeating ability of blocking up and not being able to get through the block and repeating the block and basically causing a an infinite loop. Now you do get to a point where, like through Solid Alibi and armor gain with Sleet Skaters, that you don't necessarily always need block every game. But the fact that I could make infinite blocks probably means that it's time for block to go. And that's where a lot of people are being frustrated at. Cards like Block, cards like Solid Alibi, that's more frustrating than Sorcerer's Apprentice. So, like, I'm fine with them making this nerf. I'm fine with them killing off the girl. I don't know if it's super appropriate or necessary or needed at this time. Last but not least, the buffs that we got. from a wild perspective, from a standard perspective, don't make a lot of sense to me. They feel like buffs that were made with a formula on a spreadsheet. So, like, they looked at the cards and looked at cards that they thought were close that could use a little nudge, and then they'd get a lot better. And so they added 1 health here, -1 mana cost there, stat change here. And some of the cards I think do get better. I think the rogue weapon that generates a coin is going to see play in Reno Paladin. I think that Maestra being 1 mana cheaper means that you can curve into Maestra hero that costs 6 or less. Tests, repeat your prep vanish from a turn before. Like, I think there are like buffs that I'm not saying they're insignificant and they're not going to improve cards play in Wild, but they seem kind of random, and they seem like not good. Let's see if this works. Okay, buff doesn't work. But like the card that I keep going back to when I look at this. Okay. Cruise Captain Laura. Cruise Captain Laura was 7 mana, and then they buffed her to 6 mana. This card still sees 0 play. And not only does it see 0 play, but it sees 0 play because it's too random. And not only is it too random, but the high rolls are crazy high, and the low rolls are crazy low. And so it's too risky a card to play. It's a fun card. It's a card that people would play for fun. Why are we buffing the fun card? The Mage Tourist. One health? Does 1 health end it? Is this why this card is not seeing play? I feel like a lot of the buffs feel out of touch. Like they're trying to tweak cards without addressing the underlying problem with why they're not being played in the first place. And I understand why they're sort of being buffed, but not being buffed too hard. We do have a mini set coming, and that mini set doesn't want to be overshadowed by newly buffed cards that they just changed. But if that's the case, and we don't want the mini set overshadowed by cards we just buffed, why are we buffing them in the first place? If the buffs aren't significant, if they're not tweaking the card or meaningfully going to increase its play rate, why are we spending time doing this as devs when the team has never been smaller? The team is the same exact word schedule it has as when they had more people working for them. And they keep up this breakneck pace of mini set every every 2 months, new set within every 4, so on and so forth. So I'm a little disappointed with the buffs because I don't see a whole lot of point behind them. And sure, like Fetch might be good, and we might see a Beast Hunter deck in Wild that uses Fetch. And like that's arguably a better card. A Watercolor Artist is a really interesting card that I think might see more play now with its buff. It was a really good arena card before, and now I think it gets much better. But there's too many buffs like this that, in my mind, seem very hollow and kind of out of touch. And I think that's dangerous for the game because if you're making buffs like this or changes like this just for the sake of making changes, you lose a little bit of faith in the community that thinks you know what you're doing.